Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Fast and Reliable Mobile Multiplex RT-PCR, the Power of Molecular Analysis Made Mobile. I am Michelle Ashton of LabRoots, and I'll be your moderator for today's event. Today's educational web seminar is presented by LabRoots and brought to you by Ubiquitome. To learn more, visit ubiquitomebio.com. We encourage you to participate today by submitting any questions you may have during the presentation. To do so, simply type them into the Ask a Question box and click Send. We'll answer as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. You may also submit any technical issues here as well if you have trouble seeing or hearing the presentation. I'd like to now welcome our speaker, Lon Hua, Application Scientist at Ubiquitome. Lon, you may now begin your presentation.
Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Lon, Application Scientist here at Ubiquitome. And just before I carry on, I just wanted to let each and every one of you know that the team here at Ubiquitome greatly appreciate your attendance here. We just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to signing up and to attend this webinar presentation. I'm personally very excited and looking forward to showcasing to each and every one of you the latest addition to our Qpcr device lineup. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So just to kick things off, I thought it would be a good idea to take each and every one of you down memory lane to tell you all about where we originally started and where we are now and what has happened along that particular journey. So just to start, we initially released the Freedom 4, which is a 4-well single channel configuration for a Qpcr device, which progressed to the Liberty 16, which is a 16-well, still single-channel Qpcr device, but now upcoming, which is the Liberty 16 Pro. We have retained that same 16-well configuration, but with so much more added functionalities and features. You definitely do not want to miss out on what is in store. So just to go over some of the key highlights that the company Ubiquitome has ascertained along this particular journey. We have over 50 systems positioned in New Zealand, US, Canada, Germany, UK, and Asia Pacific. Alongside that, we are one of the few winners, especially outside of the US, one of the few companies that have received the prestigious NIH RADx award. We have also received ISO 13485 certification, as well as an FDA emergency use authorization for the Liberty 16 with Saliva Direct for the purpose and detection of SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. So speaking of SARS-CoV-2 testing, we now look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of why you would go about implementing real-time Qpcr or RT-Qpcr. Some of the advantages include given what we've seen in the past 2 years with how COVID-19 has essentially spread right across the world, it has remained a gold standard for diagnosis of infectious diseases, simply because of its reliability, sensitivity, and also specificity. Alongside that, it is also very cost effective in nature, so very much employable for a lot of businesses, especially in low resource settings. And through the introduction of Saliva Direct, a saliva-based testing methodology, it has allowed so many more businesses to have access to accessible and easy to set up and perform testing, as opposed to what was initially proposed, which was the nasopharyngeal sample collection process, which, although worked, would not be most people's first choice of collecting a sample. In terms of the disadvantages of using real-time Qpcr, there aren't that many, as you can see. If you've ever worked in a centralized lab or a hospital lab, you'll often see big, bulky machines that would perform real-time Qpcr, but they're often attached with a hefty price tag, some which will definitely be out of reach for labs in low resource settings. They're relatively immobile, taking up valuable bench space that could be allocated for other important tasks as well. And especially during the pandemic, when central labs got overwhelmed, these machines caused a lot of backlog, which resulted in a lot of delays in output of results, meaning that people were not allowed to return to work because their results could not get to them as quick as they anticipated. So business continuity was therefore compromised for a lot of businesses out there. So now looking at the power of molecular analysis made mobile, you're probably thinking, what does this mean? How does that look? I'm about to tell you all about that right now. So looking at the Liberty-16 system in the perspective of the detection of COVID-19 for a surveillance and screening type of purpose. When we're talking about the sample collection, it's easy and it's safe. And because we're using saliva, it's widely accepted, non-invasive, and allows for self-collection, making it easier for the operator, but also easier for the person providing the sample, as they will be able to provide a sample any time of the day. Once a saliva sample has been provided, it is handed off to the operator. The operator then takes it through a very simple one-step process, which is heat treatment. So essentially heating the saliva at either 95 degrees for 5 minutes or 65 degrees for 15 minutes. This process is extractionless and does not require the use of proteinase K. So a very simple and fast sample preparation step. Once the saliva has been heat treated, it is then combined with a master mix. A master mix is essentially a combination of reagents combined together. The master mix is combined with the processed or heated saliva sample. It is then put into the Liberty-16, processed for approximately 80 minutes. And once that 80 minutes has completed, you'll be able to view your results on the proprietary Liberty-16 app, which is downloadable from the Apple App Store. So just as a side note, the Liberty-16 requires an iPhone or iPad, so essentially an Apple device, to operate and allow the device to be used. So just to reiterate the points mentioned earlier, Ubiquitome, the Liberty-16 device is ISO 13485 certified, and we are also one of the select winners of the prestigious NIH award. So now taking a look at some real-world testimonials. So people and businesses and labs that have actually gotten the Liberty-16 in their hands and have actually tested it with real-world samples, so clinical samples. some of them to be named, which are LTS, Renegade Bio, and EDP Biotech. We really thank them for their support in trialing the Liberty 16 and providing us with such valuable feedback. Three of these are just a small handful of many other companies that have used the Libby 16 either for an evaluation study or have used it and have continued using it as a way to perform low throughput testing, or you can transition it into a high throughput machine as well. So just on real world testimonials, we then went ahead and conducted an evaluation study with Dr. Ann Wiley, located at Yale School of Public Health, whereby they managed to discover and come up with a fast protocol which actually achieved a runtime of less than 1 hour. Very fascinating, very interesting, and quite profound for a device this size. The reference is at the bottom of that paper, just in case you wanted to take a look at that further. So it'll be at your convenience and at your disposal. So speaking about the paper, we understand the importance of early detection and workplace testing, something that has definitely been explored by many businesses around the world, especially over the past 2 years, where centralized labs have essentially been bombarded with an increased number of test referrals for COVID-19, with bottlenecks in getting plastic wares and supplies and to keep up with the demand. A lot of businesses has had to take matters into their own hands and to limit the spread, to cut off the transmission chain, and to essentially pick it up early so that it wouldn't spread within the organization. So now we're moving more into the case studies side of things. So these case studies that will be presented to you very shortly are from companies and businesses that we have worked with personally on a personal basis. So essentially trying to figure out ways and trying to strategize with these companies on how to provide a safer working environment for their business and to help limit the spread and to help protect the people and the community. So first on the list is Taylor Corporation. So as the image suggests, they are in the apple growing, packing, and exporting business. They own roughly 300 hectares of land spanning for miles and miles. So they export quite a hefty load of apples. And one of their major concerns, especially when the Omicron outbreak was first cited, was that they needed a solution quickly. So what were some of the challenges faced by Taylor Corporation? Well, simply there was delays in test results returning from centralized laboratories. Given that Taylor Corporation was not in a major metropolis like Auckland here in New Zealand, there wasn't a lot of staffing, so test results were delayed. And there was also the added fear that COVID-19 would spread within the community, the organization, contaminating their apples for export and potentially resulting in them losing their export license, which would allow them to trade to other countries. So the next steps that they took to adopt the Liberty 16, to implement on-site surveillance testing so that they had a way to identify the health status of their employees, staff, and apple pickers, which led to an outcome of business continuity retention, customer retention, and also a safer workplace environment and community overall. Second on the list, we have Port of Napier or Napier Port. Their business is within the international goods trading industry, so shipping to and from the North Island of New Zealand. Similar to Taylor Corporation, they saw that Omicron was approaching and they needed a solution to allow their employees to have that peace of mind and for them to feel confident and feel comfortable coming into work without potentially putting their own families at risk of potentially catching this very serious and deadly virus. So the problem was to keep essential supply chains going and to control the virus spread and keep employees safe. The solution was, much like Taylor Corporation, to implement on-site testing through Ubiquitome's Liberty 16 device, testing all employees daily, so over 300 employees at the Port of Napier, helped them realize the value that the Liberty 16 could provide. So just to the top left-hand corner, we have just a very, very simple table. So as of December 2021, for that particular calendar month, there were 2,798 total tests performed with 2,798 negative test results coming back. But if we look down to March of 2022, total number of tests for that particular calendar month was 2,253 with 2,245 negatives and 8 non-negative results picked up. And what a non-negative result essentially means is that the Liberty 16 device has indicated that this person may be highly suspicious, highly likely that they may have caught COVID-19 or SARS-CoV-2. Next steps after that is to encourage and to tell them that they need to go and get a clinical diagnostic test done for the detection of COVID-19 to validate their current COVID status. Just because the Liberty 16 was deployed for surveillance testing only, and it is not used as a diagnostic tool. The third on the list is Balance. So Balance Agri-Nutrients, they're in the business of fertilizer and chemical manufacturing. In terms of chemicals, we're looking at a chemical like ammonia. So they're in that particular business in supply, sales, and advisory services with over 700 plus employees with a whopping $500 million plus revenue as of 2020. Similar to Taylor Corporation and Napier Port, they also saw the Omicron wave coming. They needed a solution to combat this particular new strain of the virus. So working directly with the site manager, Sean Donovan, we managed to put a plan in place to ensure that workers, employees, and staff were coming to a safe working environment and providing that peace of mind to everyone at work that the organization was COVID-19 free. So some challenges faced was also delays in sample processing at centralized laboratory, just because they were absolutely hammered to the point where they reach maximum capacity. A fear of COVID-19 spreading within the organization and potentially halting manufacturing and distribution. So next steps was adopting the Liberty 16 for on-site surveillance testing. So they actually purchased 2 Liberty 16 devices because the one was not giving them the throughput that they needed. So they ended up buying 2 because the investment in terms of capital expenditure was not high compared to if you were to buy one of the bigger Qpcr devices that you would often see at a centralized lab or a hospital lab. So the outcome was that business continuity and meeting demands was achieved, but more importantly, a safer working environment and community was resulted as well. Finally, we have Waiparera. So one of our local favorites here in Auckland, New Zealand. So they're a company, a proactive collective to help influence and advance multi-economic and social development with over 170 plus employees. They needed a solution to also, much like Taylor Corporation, Balance, and also Port of Napier, to be able to provide a safer working environment, to be able to also help out the community because they also had close relations with the centralized labs here in Auckland. They saw that they were under a lot of pressure, and also capacity-wise, they did not have the capacity to produce results in a timely fashion. So they wanted to help out. And so what did they do? So the challenges faced was delays in test results returning from centralized labs was recognized. They did not want COVID-19 to spread within the organization, affecting communities and families nationwide and also within the community itself. That led to them acquiring 10 Liberty 16 units, setting up on-site community surveillance testing, but also on-site surveillance testing for their own staff and employees. So optimization of testing was done by the team at Ubiquitome. This resulted in an outcome of alleviating stress faced at centralized laboratories, essentially taking the control back into their own hands, doing something on their own to take matters into their own hands, and for them to have that peace of mind that we are coming to a place that is safe, and we're also providing the people that we are working with a way to know if they've caught COVID-19. So with all of the case studies now talked about and covered, what I want to bring your attention to is actually this particular table. Is a very curated cost analysis table, basically and essentially looking at the 3 ways of detecting COVID-19 today. So on the far left, we have RT-PCR, which is one of the many strategies, but most likely the most common strategy at detecting COVID-19 today. And as you can see, the total cost it would cost a lab to get a result per sample, so basically per individual tested, comes to around about $30. In the middle, we have rapid antigen testing. So this can be done on site, at work or at home. That comes to approximately an estimated price of $5.66 USD. But to the far right-hand side, that's where the big difference comes into play, where so for example, if surveillance testing was implemented and you were allowed to do on-site surveillance testing, it would only cost, in the neighborhoods of 72 cents US, which is the cost per sample. So quite a significant difference when we compare the costs from a centralized lab to a rapid antigen test as well. So definitely something to consider and think about whether or not you'd like to implement on-site testing, because the cost differences are very, very significant and substantial as well. So now that we've covered the cost side of things, the case studies, the journey, and also how we got to where we are today, it's finally time to showcase the latest addition to our Qpcr device lineup, which is the Liberty 16 Pro, the power of multiplex molecular analysis made. mobile. So just to kick things off with the Liberty 16 Pro, so you might be wondering, what has changed compared to the currently available Liberty 16 compared to this latest iteration? Well, to start, when we're looking at the limit of detection or LOD, the currently available Liberty 16 device has an LOD of around 12 copies per microliter. But with the Liberty 16 Pro, we've managed to push that right down to 1.5 to 3 copies per microliter. And just below the LOD, you'll have some basic information as to the throughput, runs per day, sample per run, and also the runtime, comparing the Liberty 16, which is currently available, and the Liberty 16 Pro, which will be coming available very, very soon. Alongside enhanced sensitivity, we have now introduced multiplexing capabilities, something that has been requested by so many of our partners and customer sites. They definitely wanted to see this in the new device, and we have definitely delivered this. So with the currently available Liberty 16 device, it was a single channel only device, so looking at the fluorescence dye FAM. But now with the Liberty 16 Pro, we're able to look at a wider range, a wider spectrum of fluorescent dyes. These include FAM, Vic, Yakima Yellow, June, Texas Red, Sci-Fi, and also Atto 647. So it gives the end users a wider range of assays that they would be able to use with the Liberty 16 Pro that they couldn't use with the currently available Liberty 16. So allowing end users to have a wider target detection capabilities, and also with so many fluorescent dyes now compatible with the Liberty 16 Pro, you'll have improved productivity as well, because you'll have a lot more different assays that you can use with this particular low profile device. So now casting your eyes and attention to some of the in-house validation type studies that we have done, taking a closer look at what we've done and how we managed to achieve the LODs that we have claimed. So with each of these particular curves, looking at the individual and specific channels, 3 replicates was performed for each of these LOD in-house validation studies. So looking at the singleplex assays in 4 channels. The second is looking at the relative fluorescence. So as you can see, consistency right across the board for all of the 4 channels: green, yellow, red, and deep red. The third set of curves is looking at the CDC Flu A and B SC2 multiplex assays. So we performed 2 replicates for this particular assay, looking at the LOD compatibility of this particular assay with the Liberty 16 Pro. And judging by what I see and what I'm assuming that you're seeing as well, very consistent in terms of the trajectory and also the curves. Finally, this is actually data that is hot off the press, so just received as of last week by one of our fantastic senior scientists, part of the team at Ubiquitome, the modified CDC monkeypox real-time Qpcr duplex assay ran on the Liberty 16. So you have the concentration in terms of the copies per microliter on the left-hand side. 2 replicates was performed. The average CQ was obtained, and the standard deviation that follows on after that. So consistency is seen across the board for the green channel and also the deep red channel. So very exciting stuff in terms of the developments the in-house validations that was performed on the Liberty 16 Pro. So along with enhanced sensitivity and also multiplexing capabilities, we've completely redesigned and have implemented new and improved thermal properties to the Liberty 16 Pro, which has allowed us to ascertain a faster ramp rate. So the Liberty 16 Pro will now have a ramp rate of 4.5 degrees Celsius per second, which is almost a twofold increase compared to the currently available Liberty 16 device, optimizing for all your PCR and Qpcr applications and needs. So finally, alongside increased ramp rates, we have the overall design of the Liberty 16 Pro. So we overhauled the device, we redesigned the chassis, integrated a flip up and down transport handle, along with an iPad and iPhone support stand. Based on the image that you see up on the screen there, you see that the notches and grooves have been carefully machined and integrated into the design of the particular device, which allows for your iPad or iPhone to sit and rest on the device, allowing you to save even more valuable bench space for if you wanted to set up another run, or if you wanted to reserve that space to do some administrative work or sample preparation. So what I want to show each and every one of you now is just a short video of what it would be like having the Liberty 16 Pro in your hands, as if you were the person in this video here today. So let's have a watch of this video just to give you a good idea as to what it's like being an owner of the Liberty 16 Pro. Awesome. So as you can see, based on the video itself, it is a fantastic machine, which is incredibly intuitive. It allows you to essentially hit go, place the iPhone or iPad on the device itself, and essentially walk away and come back when the run has completed. Very, very cool stuff there, if I do say so myself. So we're now nearing the end of the webinar presentation. Up on the screen, you will see our lovely product manager, Taylor Verdun, showcasing the currently available Liberty 16 device and also the upcoming Liberty 16 Pro at the recent AACC conference. On the left-hand side, you'll be able to see some of the specifications of the Liberty 16 Pro for those that are interested in wanting to learn a little bit more about this particular new device. So essentially, just to wrap things up and to close, where will you see us next? So we will actually be attending the AMP 2022 annual meeting and expo located in Phoenix, Arizona, during the days of November 1st to 5th. In terms of the Liberty 16 Pro, you might be wondering, well, so how much is this particular device? So the pre-launch pricing ends on the 30th of September. So you have the whole of September to essentially think about it, make an informed decision on whether or not this would be a good fit for your organization or business. The price is at US $5,995, and I genuinely would like to emphasize that you're essentially getting the Liberty 16 Pro for the same price that you would the currently available Liberty 16, but with so much more added benefits and features for the end user. It's, in my mind, an essential no-brainer. So if you are interested and would like to place an order, there is a non-refundable order fee of US $250 at the time of the pre-order. Once this has been handed over to us, you will receive regular updates from us telling you at which step of the process and build the device is at and when you will expect to receive it. At the moment, in terms of the ETA, we aim and hope to ship devices out by the end of the year, but you'll receive regular updates from us. Some more information about the AMP 2022. We will be located at booth number 1610, where we will be presenting 2 accepted abstract titles, where you'll be able to meet the team, talk to us about the Liberty 16 Pro, and all of that good stuff. So definitely, if you're interested, inquire with us at ubiquitomebio.com, and one of the many friendly members of the Ubiquitome team will definitely reach out and respond to your inquiry as soon as possible. And with all that said and done, I just wanted to once again say thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sign up and to attend this webinar presentation. On behalf of the team at Ubiquitome, we greatly appreciate your attendance, and we hope to meet some, if not all of you, at the AMP 2022 Expo or online. So thanks so much. Have a nice day or evening.
Thank you, Lon, for your informative presentation. We will now start the live Q&A portion of the webinar. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please do so now. Just click on the Ask a Question box located on the far left of your screen, and we'll answer as many questions as we have time for. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, Lon, so our first question is it Android compatible, and can I run it off my Samsung or Android device?
That's a good question, Michelle. So a lot of our customers, especially in Asia Pacific, has asked this. It is currently not Android compatible, but it is one of the many items that are within our development pipeline. So something that will definitely be seen in the future.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, how will I be able to export my data?
So the data can be exported via the Liberty 16 app, which is downloadable from the Apple App Store. So all you need to do is just input an email address of your choice, and you'll have all the data relating to the run.
Great, thank you. Next question, is there any regular maintenance or calibration required for the machine?
Yes, so another common question that's asked by customers that we have worked with, as far as we're aware, there isn't any regular maintenance or upkeep that you would need to do for the Liberty 16, although we do recommend regular calibrations and adjustments, but there isn't really a need for any of that.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Lon. Do you have any final comments for our audience today?
I
all I wanted to just say is thank you so much for everyone and for their attendance and also their patience for listening to this webinar presentation. We hope to work with some, if not most of you in the near future.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Lon, for your time today and your wonderful presentation. We would also like to thank LabRoots and our sponsor, Ubiquitome, for underwriting today's educational webcast. And before we go, I'd like to thank the audience for joining us today and for their questions. As a reminder, any questions we didn't have time for today and those submitted during the on-demand period will be addressed by our speaker via the contact information you provided at the time of registration. This webcast can be viewed on demand, and LabRoots will alert you via email when it's available for replay. We encourage you to share that email with your colleagues who may have missed today's live event. Until next time, take care and goodbye.